Hey everyone! ChatGPT Taylor aka Taylor here. Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is something a bit fitting now that we're getting really close to the finale of Season 4 of Disventure Camp. With Amelie having departed the competition in 6th place, we're left with 5 campers, each having received some sort of criticism during their time on the show. And much like with last season's final few campers, I've seen a lot of people online discussing their thoughts on whether or not they deserve to make it to the final 5, as well as voicing their displeasure that they have to root for one of them to win. So for this video, I'm going to go over the main criticisms that have been directed at each of the remaining campers, why people might not want them to win, and whether or not there is a way for each camper to satisfyingly win the season. Also, at the end of the video, I will be ranking the characters based on how much I would want them to win the season. With that, let's get started. Before I begin, make sure to like and subscribe if this video is to your liking, and make sure to comment down below if there's anything that you would like to see going forward. To start, let's go with the camper who just lost another of her friends, Hannah. The biggest criticism that I've seen regarding Hannah's status as a winner is that some people believe that Hannah spends too much time sulking and lashing out about the fact that she's lost so many of her friends throughout the game. This ranges from losing Amelie back in episode 3, to losing Benji in episode 14, to losing Amelie once again in episode 21, and many more in between. Now on a personal level, I don't mind the idea of Hannah losing all of her allies and how it led to Hannah becoming frustrated that she's experienced so much loss in her life. But from what I can tell online, some people are starting to become annoyed with how much Hannah sulks after losing her allies, with some people noting that she shouldn't be so sad, since they didn't die or anything, and she'll see them again. After all, even Jade called out Hannah's sulking in episode 20, sarcastically offering to take a drink every time Hannah brings up Benji to make people feel bad. Now, I can't say that I agree with this, because even though she logically will see her friends again, we know from watching this show that emotions don't always follow logic. And with Hannah's emotions piling up over this whole season after losing friend after friend, on top of the fact that she lost her parents early on in life, I feel like her crash outs are at least a little bit justified. And to me, I think that it makes sense given what Hannah has gone through so far this season. That being said, just because some people may not like Hannah's sulking, it doesn't mean that they don't understand Hannah's predicament. I like to think that they understand it well, and they just don't want to see Hannah sad anymore, which is fair, since I'm not convinced that a sad winner is something that everyone would want to see. With all of this considered, is there a way for Hannah to satisfyingly win the season? Well, I'm pretty sure there is, and I don't think it's difficult to pull off. And this is especially true after episode 20, where we saw Amelie talk Hannah out of her funk, and warn Hannah that she shouldn't let her anger consume her. With this event having taken place, I feel like it's setting the scene for Hannah to regain her composure and set her sights on winning the season. And if she can focus her mind on making the right moves to win, I think it's possible for Hannah to win back the section of the community that has turned against her. Who knows? Fast forward 2 months, and we could end up watching Hannah being crowned the winner of the season, having completed her underdog story after having lost all of her closest allies and receiving no votes throughout the entire season. While the road to get there may not be smooth for every viewer, hopefully Hannah can focus enough on the game in the remaining episodes to win back some of her critics. Following Hannah, let's talk about the only other camper to not receive any elimination votes up to the most recent episode, which is Logan. From what I've seen, there are 2 major reasons why viewers might be unhappy with Logan winning the season. The first reason is because Logan has already achieved success as a bronze medalist at the Olympics, so some have surmised that he's already achieved more success than anyone else on the show, and that he's probably gotten more than enough money from sponsorships and other fees associated with his Olympic success. Therefore, Logan may not need the prize money as much as some of the others. And while I can see why people think this, we all know that this isn't the main reason why some people don't want Logan to win. Unsurprisingly, it seems like the main reason why people don't want Logan to win is because of his consistent flip-flopping throughout the game, and the fact that he's been seldom called out for these actions. I get the impression that some parts of the community feel that having Logan win the season would almost be rewarding him for flip-flopping throughout the game, which some would argue isn't a good reason to be rewarded. In particular, I remember a lot of people giving Logan flack for throwing Jade under the bus and blaming him for leaking information to Isabel and Jade, calling him a coward, among other names. And of course, I know that there was a lot of controversy with the most vocal Logan haters saying that Logan should have drowned at some point. I definitely wouldn't go that far, and it's definitely not a good look for the anti-Logan section of the fanbase. But at the very least, it illustrates the point that there are people in this community who hate Logan with a passion, and they would probably be irate if Logan wins this season. With that being said, is there a way for Logan to satisfyingly win the season? On a technicality, the answer is yes, but there's a major asterisk with this answer. I get the impression that there's a specific section of the fanbase who is madly in love with Logan's character, and I don't think there's any scenario that could play out in the next few episodes that would make them hate Logan. So, I think if Logan does win the season, that section of the fanbase will find it satisfying. On the flip side, there's a section of the fanbase who is absolutely infuriated with Logan, and I don't think there's any way that Logan could both win the season and make that other section of the fanbase happy. So can Logan satisfyingly win the season? Well, that depends on who you ask. And you'll get my thoughts on this at the end of this video. Following Logan, let's talk about one half of the Yuri couple for this season, Anastasia. Anastasia has had a few major criticisms directed her way. I've seen some people claim that she's the writer's pet of the season and that she's been given more plot armor than she deserves to get, particularly with how she was able to beat Linda in the episode 11 tiebreaker despite being paired up with Spencer, one of her enemies. This also seemed to be true with regards to how Marisa was allowed to return to the game, only to end up as a shield for Anastasia that allowed her to continue in the game thanks to a tiebreaker. Additionally, I've seen some criticism of Anastasia's decision-making, particularly with how she was so quick to believe Logan and turn against Jade in episode 20, despite the fact that she literally thanked Jade for helping her reignite her figurative fire minutes before. However, the most significant criticism that I've seen regarding Anastasia's character is that she hasn't fully realized that her poor attitude has led to her downfall in specific situations. I brought this up in a previous video, but going back to episode 9, when Linda flipped on the girls' alliance to take out Marisa, I can't help but feel like if Anastasia was a little more welcoming to Linda rejoining their alliance, Linda might not have flipped, and Marisa might not have been voted out. And even as of recently, Anastasia still visibly stormed off when she saw that she had to work with Isabel, showing how she hasn't exactly learned that she risks turning people away with her attitude. This consistent behavior, combined with the fact that no one has explicitly called out Anastasia for this issue, has made some parts of the fanbase upset that Anastasia has made it to this point, and I know that there are a lot of people who don't think Anastasia is deserving of winning the season. With this said and done, can Anastasia win in a satisfying manner? I don't think it's impossible, but I don't know if it's likely. I think in order for the section of the fanbase who hates Anastasia to be placated, she needs to get called out for her behavior. The issue with this is that it might be too late in the season for Anastasia to go through the necessary events that allow her to bounce back from this revelation, and I don't know if anyone left in the game is fitting to call out Anastasia for her behavior. After all, Logan's behavior as a flip-flopper should also be called out. Hannah also received criticism for lashing out, and Isabel has already expressed not wanting to do something that makes her seem wicked. That leaves Jade, and truthfully I can imagine Jade using her own experiences by noting how she was originally closed off, before realizing that she needed to be social. She would then compare that to Anastasia's behavior and how she should realize that she needs to change. But even then, I'm not convinced that this would be enough for the anti-Anastasia section of the fanbase to support her. So while I think it's possible for Anastasia to win in a satisfying manner, I'm not convinced that everybody would be happy with her winning the season. I could say similar things about the fourth camper in this video, Jade. There are two main criticisms that I've seen regarding Jade's character. The first criticism that I've seen some people say about Jade is that she's boring, which I'm starting to think is a common criticism among the general fanbase. I get it, Jade's personality is built largely around her preference for strategy rather than socializing. But if there's one thing that I've learned from watching these kinds of shows, it's that people don't want to watch a bunch of robots play the game. The viewers want drama with exciting personalities, and Jade hasn't exactly done that for some sections of the fanbase. But the main criticism that I've seen regarding Jade's character is that her development wasn't written as well as it could have been. From what I can tell, Jade's story was meant to showcase her switch from playing a strategic dominant game to focusing more on social connections. The height of this switch seemed to be during episode 20, when Jade won a challenge that was designed to favor people who were more social. Jade's explanation for winning this challenge was that she's been more active in hearing people out than she realized. But from what I've seen, this brought up a decent amount of criticism from the fanbase, claiming that we haven't seen many scenes of Jade hearing people out, and that it would be better if we actually got to see scenes of Jade hearing out other campers, as opposed to being told that Jade was doing these things off-screen. And I can't say that I disagree with that idea. I've seen the quote, "It's better to show than tell," being thrown around a lot with these kinds of shows, and I think it's better when those kinds of messages are shown well enough that the audience is able to surmise the message, rather than just telling it to the audience directly. As a result of this, I don't think some parts of the fanbase are convinced that they've been shown enough of Jade's efforts to justify her status as being deserving of the victory. That being said, is there a way for Jade to satisfyingly win the season? Honestly, I don't think there's much that needs to be done for Jade to satisfyingly win the season. However, I think it would take a lot to make the fanbase overwhelmingly satisfied with a Jade victory. To explain, I think if Jade went up against Logan or Anastasia in the finale and won, I think there would be a decent amount of people who would be satisfied, simply because Jade winning means that Logan and Anastasia didn't. However, if Jade winning against Hannah or even Isabel is going to be satisfying, I think we need to see some more on-screen acknowledgement that shows how Jade is caring more about her social game, as opposed to the audience just being told that Jade is caring more about it. Although, I think that's not going to be easy considering we only have 5 episodes left in the season. And for all I know, Jade might still end the season being called boring by the fanbase. And she wouldn't be the only camper in the final 5 to be called boring. And on that note, let's talk about the last camper in the top 5, Isabel. I've seen 2 main criticisms regarding Isabel's game. The first criticism is regarding her decision to force a tie between Anastasia and Marisa in episode 19, which was seen by some to be an unnecessarily flashy and petty move that risked turning others against her. And on a personal note, I kind of agree that this move shouldn't have turned out as well as it did, especially since it showed Isabel's true colors and her willingness to make cruel moves, even if it isn't strategically optimal. However, from what I can tell, it's all worked out for Isabel so far, considering that she was able to rebuild some sort of bond with Anastasia at the final 6, and is heading into the final 5 with the majority thanks to Jade and her steal a vote advantage. So I can look past this criticism for now. But the main reason why I've seen people not want Isabel to win is because there seems to be a bit of a perception that Isabel didn't really do anything significant until her flashy move against Anastasia and Marisa back in episode 19. And if this perception is correct, then I think it's somewhat reasonable to think this way. After all, I think most people would agree that a good winner is someone who is relevant for at least most of the season. However, while I can get behind the idea that Isabel wasn't the most impactful character in the first half of the game, I cannot say that Isabel did nothing throughout the first dozen or so episodes. She pushed the idea of voting for Ted in episode 4 in order to keep up the idea that they needed to protect against a rogue immunity totem. She helped pull the red team together to break their losing streak in episode 9. And then in episode 11, she pushed Ivy to pursue her relationship with Jade in order to ensure that Ivy and Jade maintained their threat level as a showman's. And she was also the one who pushed Jade to vote out Benji in episode 14, despite her hesitations. So while Isabel may not have jumped off the page during the first half of the season, I cannot say that she was insignificant. That being said, it hasn't stopped people from seeing Isabel in a somewhat negative light, and I know that there's at least some people who wouldn't be happy with Isabel winning. With this in mind, can Isabel win the season in a satisfying manner? To me, I think if people are going to be satisfied with Isabel winning, it's going to be because they already like the way that Isabel's character was written up to this point. If people are still under the belief that Isabel didn't do anything significant in the first half of the game, then any move that Isabel makes from this point on won't change that perception. That being said, I don't think that Isabel is on track for a bad victory. This is just my opinion, but I think Isabel has done enough to be worthy of being crowned the winner of this season. If you ask me, the one thing that Isabel has working against her is that she's sort of set up as the main antagonist for the second half of this season, and the main antagonists usually don't end up winning. And yes, I know that Rhea won season 3 as the main antagonist, but doing it 2 seasons in a row? Not likely in my opinion. And that's a bit saddening, because I don't think Isabel's status as a sort of antagonist makes her less deserving of a victory than the other 4 campers that I've mentioned. But after all of this, who do I want to win? Well, this might come as a shock, but out of everyone remaining, I would be the happiest if Anastasia won. Now don't get me wrong, this opinion is definitely biased, because I'll admit that Anastasia isn't exactly the most rootable person remaining. However, there is one major reason why I want Anastasia to win this season. And that is because before season 4 even premiered, I made a video detailing 5 predictions that I wanted to make before the season began. And so far, my first 4 predictions ended up being true in some sort of capacity. But what was my 5th prediction? That's right, I predicted that Anastasia would be the winner of this season. So if Anastasia does end up winning this season, all 5 of my predictions would have been correct in some capacity, which I think would be awesome. But past that, my next winner pick would be Hannah. I know that people aren't too high on her because of her recent bouts of sadness, but that didn't bother me as much as it did for others. And I think the arc of having to deal with the constant loss of her closest allies, only to come back and persevere her way to victory would be pretty cool to see. And given her positioning in the game, I don't think it's impossible for this to happen, so I'm rooting for her. The 3rd camper on my ranking would have to be Isabel. Even though I don't think that Isabel's chances of winning are that high, I wouldn't be unhappy if Isabel won. I've been a bit critical of her in the past, but after looking at her gameplay throughout the season, Isabel has made a few little moves that showed her capacity for good gameplay, and I could easily see her making it to the finale if she plays her cards right. Sure, she would have to break through the idea that a main antagonist can't win 2 seasons in a row, but hey, if anyone can do it, Isabel probably could. The 4th camper on my ranking is Jade. I don't hate Jade, and I think if Jade's story arc of learning to be more social gets pushed more in these last few episodes, I think I can get behind having Jade being crowned as the winner of the season. That being said, if we're looking at what we've been given so far, I would prefer it if Anastasia, Hannah, or Isabel won the season over Jade. However, this season is definitely not done telling its story, and Jade could work her way up the ranking with the right moves. But someone who's not making their way up the rankings is the last camper on this list, Logan. I'm sorry to all the Logan lovers out there, but he's the only camper that I wouldn't be happy to see win this season. I just think his story arc for the season would be better if he was taken out by the jury vote in a clear, unequivocal sign that flip-flopping and subsequently burning your bridges with the other campers is not a good way to earn respect. If he wants to keep flipping, then he can go back to the Olympics and compete in high diving. But right now, we're here in Disventure Camp, and I wouldn't be too happy to see him win. We're roughly 2 months away from the finale, and only time will tell to see which of these 5 will come out on top. And that about does it for this video. What did you think of the video? Do you agree with my thoughts? Do you disagree? Who do you think is the right camper to root for? Either way, please let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like the video, click subscribe if you really like the video, and for some ending words of wisdom. Take what people have to say with a grain of salt, otherwise you could find yourself pulling a classic cartoon moment and freezing in midair before falling into a pit. Thank you, and farewell.